FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
The American dream of life out west, now shattered, this man says, by the feds rounding up his cattle.
I believe this is a sovereign state of Nevada, and I'm a citizen, and we operate within this state. We run cattle here, graze this natural resource off this public land, and I abide by all of Nevada state laws. But I don't recognize the United States government as even existing.
Because of that belief, Cliven Bundy has not paid grazing fees. The government says he owes them around $1 million. The BLM and National Park Service are now going forward with 2 court orders to get the cattle off what they say is public land that Bundy's cows are trespassing on.
The cows are just dreamers. I mean, that's at least what the Obama administration would call this at this point, isn't it? I mean, they're just dreamers at this point. Joining me right now is this Nevada rancher it's the Western War, basically. Cliven Bundy joins us. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, this is really ramped up in the past week or so. I've been seeing photos of snipers on ridges. I've been seeing helicopters. I've seen video of people being tased. Your son was arrested, and it all comes down to this use of land. Give us a little bit of backstory. I know that your family for generations has been in this area. You yourself, your ranch is here, and you have grazed in this area for generations. Give us some backstory on your relationship with this land.
First, could you believe that this is happening in America? Can you believe this would happen to a rancher out here in the West? It's hard to believe. This would be a story that you couldn't hardly believe happening over in Iraq or something, and here it is happening right here at home. My family's been here for, I believe, 137 years. They come here as pioneers. They pioneered the roads in here, and they established water from the Virgin River and put on their fields, and then they started to use the natural resources out in the hills away from their farms to graze their cattle and their sheep and their horses, and they created preemptive rights here. And I've either inherited these rights or bought these rights, and these rights wasn't created by one great big rancher. These rights were created by individual little pioneers that come here, and they'd started to graze just their workhorse and maybe a milk cow. And then these rights have been gathered together by selling and buying or inherited. And I have inherited or bought all of the rights I have. Now let me talk about rights. The rights that I own, I don't own the public land. It's public land. I only own some rights on there, like a right-of-way. I own the forage, which is the plants. I own the water, which is livestock water. I own access to the roads and trails and my cow trails and everything across this desert. And I own the range improvements, which would be like trails, water improvements. And let me talk about water just a second. Out here in the desert, the waters are just seeps. They're not big streams or rivers. They're just little wet spots in the earth. And my forefathers and myself, we've mined down into the earth, collected this little bit of water, and piped it out in a stream like the size of a pencil. And then we store that water in a tank, and then we put it in a water trough, and that water trough waters the wildlife in this desert and my livestock. And so that's just a type of important. Now, one other thing I claim I own. The same as we, the people in Clark County public land, to access that right, to picnic, to hunt, to see. Right. Those type of rights I claim also.
So essentially you have a deal already with Nevada, and the Bureau of Land Management is essentially trying to revoke or renege that deal.
Yeah, it gets back to the ownership of this. Who owns this land? Does Nevada own? Let me put it this way. Does the sovereign state of Nevada own this land within their borders, or does the United States own this land within their borders? If the United States owns this land, then I guess I'm wrong. But what if this is a sovereign state of Nevada, and the Clark County, Nevada, owns this land. The people of Clark County, Nevada, owns this land. That's the question here. And then they said, well, you're trespassing. Bundy's a trespasser. He's getting something for free. He's on our land. Well, whose land am I on? And the question is who is the trespasser? Is the United States trespassing? Now, remember what they're doing? They got the roads closed. They're causing trouble with the citizens. They're stealing property. Now, that's sort of trespassing. Now, who is the trespasser here? Is it the United States trespassing on Clark County, Nevada land? Or is it Cliven Bundy trespassing on Clark County, Nevada land?
That's the question. And I've read that they've also taken a number of your cattle. You have over 900 head of cattle. They've taken a number of them and have killed them, I have read. Is that true?
Well, I don't know for sure about how many's been killed. I know they have taken approximately 300. And then yesterday we had an incident where we had people getting, little old ladies getting threw down on the ground and we had lasering and we had dogs set on them. And this was all because the protesters wanted to see what was inside of a dump truck. And let me paint this picture for you. The Bunkerville Mountain is off the distance like 10, 12 miles, and then it slopes down to the Virgin River. And they could see a convoy of BLM Rangers following, some in the front and some in the back of this dump truck pulling the backhoe. And it's coming down off the mountain, and so you can see the dust. And so they get in a position, they want to see what's in the dump truck because they suspicious that they took the backhoe up there in the mountain to bury dead cattle, so dig a hole and put the cattle in them, or they put the cattle in the dump truck that was coming down off the mountain. And now it's the reason why the protesters encountered this convoy of about 15 vehicles with at least two people per vehicle armed in them.
Yeah, and it's insane that they use this amount of force in response to this. Now, those who say that, why wouldn't you get a permit or something along those lines? What do you say to those people who argue for forage permits?
Well, what I say, and again, getting back to the trespasser permit, I would be happy to pay a grazing fee to the proper form of government if I owed it. In other words, I would pay to the Clark County, Nevada government. Now, let me put this, when you talk about dollars, let's talk about $1 a grazing fee. If I give $1 a grazing fee, bureaucracy will eat that thing up so fast. If I give $1 to Clark County, it will pay for their schools, their roads, their police, many good uses we, the people of Clark County, would get out of that dollar. So, and I feel like that's a proper form of government.
Exactly. We have about a minute left. I want to ask you, sir, I've heard the story of this tortoise that BLM has said that, that's why they're trying to save this area because of this desert tortoise. Well, when has that ever been a problem there?
Well, it started 20 years ago when they got rid of all my 54 or 52 ranchers here in Clark County. The tortoise was the reason for that, and what they said is the tortoise needed more habitat, so they got rid of the cattle because the tortoise and cattle eat the same thing. Well, that's true, but there was no scientific proof that the tortoise and the cattle had any conflict and interest. But what they've done is they've took that tortoise issue, they've got rid of the producer off the ranch, and they've charged the public mitigation fees. For example, the Kern River gas line come across my ranch, and they charged them the cost of that was $900
We're up against a hard break. I have to get going. But Cliven Bundy, I would love to have you back. We're going to keep following this story. I got about 20 seconds. Thank you so much for joining me.